The experiment begins. Syra had studied many species across the galaxy, but none fascinated her like humans. They were different, strange, unpredictable, emotional. Unlike her own people, the Valkyrians, who reproduced through energy fusion, humans had a complicated system that required physical connection. She had read about it in old Earth databases stored in the deep archives of her research ship. It was called reproduction, but it was more than that. Humans formed bonds, relationships, emotions. Syra did not understand emotions. Her species did not have them. But she was curious. Could a Valkyrian experience human reproduction? Could she feel what humans felt? She had to find out. A human test subject. Syra sat inside her ship, floating in the dark emptiness of space. The control panels glowed softly as she scanned for a human nearby. The search did not take long. A small damaged spacecraft drifted not far from her location. The life signs showed one human male, still alive but in distress. Perfect, she thought. With a flick of her hand, she activated the ship's tractor beam. The human spacecraft trembled, and then began moving toward her docking bay. The moment it landed, she stood up and walked toward the airlock. The door hissed open. A tall human man stepped out cautiously. His suit was torn in places, and his breathing was heavy. His blue eyes narrowed as he looked at her. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice sharp. "My name is Kyra," she said. "You are in danger. Your ship was failing. I saved you." The man studied her, still suspicious. "And what do you want in return?" Hidera tilted her head. She had read that humans often believed in deals and exchanges. She decided to be direct. "I wish to perform an experiment," she said, "on human reproduction." The man blinked, then coughed, then blinked again. "Excuse me, what?" "I need to understand human reproduction. You will assist me." He stared at her for a long time. Then suddenly he laughed. It was a strange sound, short, rough, unexpected. Syra frowned. Laughter was not the reaction she expected. "You're joking, right?" he said. "No," Syra replied. "This is a serious scientific experiment." The man rubbed his face and sighed. "Look, lady, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding," Syra insisted. "The human database explains everything. I have read the process." The man hesitated. "You read about it?" "Yes." Syra's eyes gleamed. "I will now attempt it." The first mistake. Before the human could react, Syra stepped closer and placed her hands on his shoulders. She closed her eyes, focusing. She had modified the energy transfer technique of her species to mimic human reproduction. The data suggested that human reproduction involved a connection. So she tried to merge her energy field with his, the way Valkyrians fused to create life. The effect was instant and disastrous. The human yelled and jumped back. His hair stood on end, as if hit by electricity. His breathing became rapid. "What the hell was deity?" he shouted. Syra frowned. "I initiated the reproduction process." "Deity way is not reproduction." The man yelled, still shaking. "You almost fried my nervous system." Syra was confused. The database did not say humans reacted like this. Had she done something wrong? The man took a deep breath, then gave her a long, hard stare. "Okay, first of all, what's your name again?" "Syra." "Okay, Syra, listen to me very carefully. You cannot just start reproduction like that." Syra's head tilted. "Explain." The man rubbed his temples. "Reproduction is not just a physical act. It involves emotions, attraction, and—" He paused. "Okay, you know what? Let's start from the beginning. Do you even know what love is?" Syra's expression remained blank. "Love." The man sighed. "Oh boy, we have a lot to talk about." Zira crossed her arms. She did not understand why he was making this so complicated. The database said human reproduction was a simple biological function. Why was he talking about emotions and love? For the first time in her life, Syra felt something strange, a feeling she could not name. Maybe this experiment was going to be more complicated than she thought. And for some reason, that excited her. Finding a human test subject. Syra stood motionless, processing what had just happened. The experiment was a failure. Not because she had made an error in execution, but because the human data had been incomplete. The reaction of Captain Ryan Carter had been unexpected. She had calculated the process using biological equations. She had followed the human database's instructions precisely, but she had not accounted for emotions. This was a problem. She turned to Ryan, who was still breathing heavily, rubbing his arms where the energy shock had hit him. His face was twisted into a strange mixture of anger, confusion, and amusement. "Okay," he said, shaking his head. "You're serious about this, aren't you?" Zira blinked. "I am always serious." Ryan gave a short laugh. "Right. Of course you are." She studied him closely. He was an average human specimen. Taller than her, with dark brown hair, blue eyes, and a strong build. His heartbeat was elevated, but he was calming down. Humans recovered quickly from shocks, which was interesting. Zira took a step closer. "You will assist me." Ryan frowned. "Assist you? In what exactly?" "Understanding human reproduction." Ryan hesitated. "I feel like I should be offended, but I'm also really curious." Zira tilted her head. "Curiosity is beneficial for learning." "Right." Ryan sighed. "Okay, first question. What exactly do you think reproduction is?" Zira didn't hesitate. The biological process in which two individuals combine genetic material to create offspring. Ryan scratched his head. "Okay. Not wrong. But there's a lot more to it than that." Zira frowned. "Explain." Ryan groaned. "Where do I even start?" Understanding the human way, Ryan leaned against the wall of Zira's ship. He crossed his arms, thinking. "All right. Humans don't just reproduce like some lab test. There's more to it." Zira's silver eyes narrowed. The human database did not mention this additional complexity. Ryan snorted. "That's because your database probably just listed the biological mechanics. It didn't explain the emotional side." Zira blinked. "Emotional side?" "Yeah. Emotions. Connection. Love." Zira stared at him. "These are unnecessary. Reproduction is a function." Ryan chuckled. "Wow, you sound like a robot." "I am not mechanical," Kyra said, her tone sharp. "I am Valkyrian." "Then why do you sound like a scientist who's never been outside a lab?" Zira was quiet for a moment. She had never considered this. Her people were a highly advanced species. They had conquered energy fusion reproduction, eliminating the need for physical bonding. They did not require emotions. In fact, emotions were considered dangerous. But humans embraced emotions. Zira finally spoke. "You are suggesting that emotions are required for human reproduction." Ryan nodded. "For the most part, yeah. It's not just about genetics. It's about trust, connection, and attraction." Zira frowned. "Attraction?" Ryan sighed. "This is going to be a long conversation." He looked around. "Do you have food here? I need food for this. Dinner with an alien." Zira led Ryan to the food synthesis unit, a metallic cube embedded in the wall. It could replicate most organic compounds. Ryan stared at the machine. "But does it make burgers?" Zira blinked. "Explain burgers." Ryan groaned. "Never mind. Just something edible." Zira pressed a button, and a tray slid out with a nutrient bar and a glass of blue liquid. Ryan picked up the bar and sniffed it. "This looks like astronaut food." It contains all necessary nutrients. You may consume it. Ryan sighed and took a bite. It was dry and tasteless. He forced himself to swallow. This is terrible. Zaira's eyes widened. It contains all essential vitamins and proteins. Ryan waved his hand. That's not the point. Humans don't just eat for survival. We eat for enjoyment. Zaira's brows furrowed. That is inefficient. Ryan laughed. Yeah, well, we're not exactly an efficient species. The first test. As Ryan finished his meal, Zaira pulled out a data tablet. We will now conduct a new experiment. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Oh no. What now? Zaira's silver eyes gleamed. I will attempt to simulate human attraction. Ryan choked on his drink. Come again. You said attraction is necessary for reproduction, Zaira explained. Therefore, I must study it. Ryan put his cup down. And how exactly do you plan to do that? Zaira tilted her head. You will assist me. Ryan sighed. I feel like I should be getting paid for this. Zaira ignored him and stepped forward. She looked at him intently, scanning his face. Humans react to physical features. This is known as aesthetic appeal. Ryan nodded. Aha. Does my appearance meet the human standard of attractiveness? Ryan nearly spit out his drink. What? Zaira was completely serious. I require data. Ryan coughed. Oh. Well. I mean, yeah. You look, unique. Like a sci-fi supermodel. Zaira nodded, processing this. Fascinating. Then we will continue. Ryan rubbed his face. I have no idea what I just signed up for. Zaira's lips curled into something that could almost be called a smile. Neither do I, but I intend to find out. The first attempt, and a big mistake. Zaira stood in front of Ryan, her silver eyes studying him with the intensity of a scientist observing a test subject. She was determined to understand attraction. The data she had read indicated that humans responded to physical appearance, scent, voice tone, and touch, but humans were unpredictable. Their reactions varied based on personal preference, emotions, and cultural conditioning. This made her experiment challenging but exciting. Ryan, on the other hand, looked deeply uncomfortable. He leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. Okay, just so we're clear, he said slowly. You want to test attraction on me? Zaira nodded. Affirmative. Ryan sighed. I feel like there are a lot of ways this can go wrong. Zaira blinked. Explain. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. Well, for starters, attraction isn't just about looks. Humans feel something. A connection. It's unpredictable. Zaira narrowed her eyes. I do not see the problem. I will generate a controlled environment for testing. Ryan groaned. That's not how this works. Zaira ignored him and pulled up her data tablet. She tapped the screen, and a holographic projection appeared. It displayed various human traits labeled as desirable. We will begin, she said, by testing physical responses. Ryan sighed again. Yeah, sure. Why not? It's not like today could get any weirder. Test number 1. The power of eye contact. Zaira adjusted her posture and stared into Ryan's eyes. Ryan blinked. Okay. What are we doing? Eye contact is a key component of human attraction. Zaira explained. The longer two individuals maintain eye contact, the stronger the connection. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Yeah, but there's a difference between flirty eye contact and serial killer eye contact. Zaira's expression didn't change. I will adjust my intensity. Ryan exhaled and tried to relax. They held eye contact for several seconds. At first, it was fine. But then, Zaira didn't blink. At all. Ryan started sweating. You're supposed to blink, you know. I am analyzing your micro-reactions. Ryan cleared his throat. Okay, but right now, it feels like you're trying to hypnotize me. Zara tilted her head. Fascinating. Ryan looked away, breaking eye contact. Test failed, Syra noted. Ryan sighed. This is gonna be a long day. Test number 2. The effect of voice tone. Syra tapped on her tablet. Humans respond positively to lower-pitched voices, she said. A deeper tone is considered more attractive. Ryan shrugged. That's mostly true, I guess. I will now test my voice modulation, Syra stated. Then she lowered her voice and spoke. Ryan. Ryan coughed. Okay, wow. You sound like a sci-fi villain. Zara adjusted. Ryan. Ryan winced. Now you sound like you're about to confess a dark secret. Zara frowned. Humans are inconsistent. Ryan chuckled. Welcome to our species. Test number 3. The power of touch. Big mistake. Zara scrolled through her database. Touch is another key factor in attraction. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Okay, that's not completely wrong. Zara stepped closer. Physical proximity increases comfort and familiarity. Ryan's brain went into full warning mode. Wait. Hold on. Before he could react, Syra placed her hands on his face. Her palms were cool but pulsing with energy. At first, Ryan just froze. Then, suddenly, electric shock. BZZT. Ryan yelped as a surge of static energy jolted through his body. His hair stood on end, his muscles tensed, and he stumbled backward, almost falling. What DTEG hell, XYRA? He shouted. Zara tilted her head. Unexpected reaction. The database did not mention electrical interference. Ryan groaned, clutching his chest. Are you trying to kill me? Zara frowned. I did not calculate an adverse response. Ryan glared at her. Well, congratulations, you just electrocuted me. Zara crossed her arms. Perhaps Valkyrian touch is not compatible with human physiology. Ryan rubbed his arms. Yeah, think. Zara made a note on her tablet. Test inconclusive. Further research needed. Ryan threw his hands in the air. No further research. That test is over. Test number 4. The unexpected reaction. Ryan sat down on the metal bench, catching his breath. Zara stood beside him, deep in thought. Her people had never needed physical contact. Valkyrians reproduced through energy fusion, a highly efficient method. Yet, humans relied on something fragile and unpredictable. Connection. She glanced at Ryan. He was still grumbling about getting shocked, but something about his frustration amused her. Then, something strange happened. Zara felt different. Her chest felt tight. A warmth spread through her body, but it wasn't from the ship's temperature. It was internal. Was this an emotion? She had never experienced emotions before. Her species had evolved without them. But now, she was feeling something. Curiosity. Amusement. No, something else. She looked at Ryan again. He was not like her. He was messy, emotional, unpredictable. But he was interesting. Zara made a final note on her tablet. Human attraction is unpredictable. Further study required. She turned to Ryan. This experiment is not over. Ryan sighed, leaning back. Of course, it's not. Something feels strange. Syra sat in silence, staring at the glowing display on her tablet. Her experiments had not gone as planned. Every calculated attempt to simulate human attraction had resulted in failure, or, in the case of Ryan's near electrocution, catastrophe. But something was bothering her. Her entire life, she had been trained to think logically. Valkyrians were a race that operated on pure intellect. There was no place for emotion, attachment, or irrational behavior. Yet here she was, sitting in front of Ryan, and feeling something. It wasn't frustration. It wasn't simple curiosity. It was something deeper. She hated not having a name for it. The unsettling discovery. Ryan, still recovering from his latest alien science mishap, leaned back against the metal bench inside Xyra's ship. His arms were crossed, and he was watching her. Not in an angry way. Not even in a confused way. More like curiosity mixed with amusement. "So, are we done with the experiments now, or are you planning to throw another science experiment at me?" Xyra tapped on her tablet. "I am recalculating my approach." Ryan chuckled. "That's one way to say I was completely wrong." Xyra looked up at him. "I was not completely wrong. I was merely missing key variables." Ryan smirked. "Yeah, like what?" Xyra hesitated. She never hesitated. Her mind always worked with absolute certainty. But now she was experiencing an unusual problem. She did not know the answer. She frowned. "The data does not explain why humans feel attraction. It only describes its effects. I do not understand the cause." Ryan shrugged. "Yeah, welcome to being human. We don't understand it either." Xyra blinked. "How can you not understand your own biological process?" Ryan laughed. "Because it's not just biological. It's emotional. And emotions aren't exactly simple." That word again. Emotion. Xyra's mind locked onto it. Her chest tightened slightly, but she ignored it. "Explain," she said. Ryan sighed, stretching his arms. "All right. Attraction isn't just about how someone looks or sounds. It's about how they make you feel." Xyra narrowed her eyes. "That does not make logical sense." Ryan grinned. "Exactly. Attraction isn't logical." Xyra stared at him. That answer was not satisfactory. She stood up. "If emotions are necessary for human attraction, then I must experience them myself." Ryan blinked. "Wait. Hold on. You don't have emotions." "No," Xyra said simply. "Valkyrians do not require emotions. We removed them from our species long ago." Ryan's expression shifted. "Removed? How do you remove emotions?" Xyra paused. She had not spoken of this before, but now, for some reason, she wanted to explain. She sat back down. "Valkyrians were once like humans. We had emotions, but they caused instability. Wars, conflicts, betrayal. Over time, we evolved past them. We embraced pure intellect, removing all unnecessary distractions." Ryan frowned. "Sounds kinda depressing." Xyra tilted her head. "It made us efficient, strong." Ryan leaned forward. "But did it make you happy?" That word. Xyra stiffened. She had studied the concept of happiness before. It was described as a biochemical response in the brain, a reward system that motivated humans. But she had never considered it personally. Could something be missing from her existence? No, that was illogical. She forced the thought away. Happiness is irrelevant. Valkyrians function at maximum efficiency without it. Ryan smirked. "Yeah. Then why are you so interested in human emotions now?" Xyra opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Why was she so interested? Her heart rate had increased. Her fingers curled slightly in a way that suggested nervousness. These were human emotional responses. Was she changing? Impossible. Yet the sensation was still there. Ryan grinned. "See, you're feeling something, aren't you?" Xyra's hands clenched. "I do not know." Asterisk asterisk. The Valkyrian morning. Before Ryan could say anything else, an alarm blared through the ship. Xyra's eyes flashed toward the control panel. Her Valkyrian communicator was flashing red. A message was incoming. She stood up, walking over to the controls. A holographic display flickered to life. A tall Valkyrian male appeared, his silver skin shimmering under the artificial light. His eyes were cold, lacking the warmth humans possessed. "Sarah, you have been observed deviating from protocol." Xyra's spine straightened. "Explain." You have spent an extended period in the presence of a human. You are engaging in unnecessary experimentation. This is unacceptable. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Wow, you guys sure know how to be creepy. The Valkyrian ignored him. The figure continued. You are dangerously close to contamination. Human emotions are not compatible with our existence. You will return immediately. Zyra clenched her jaw. I am not contaminated. The Valkyrian's voice became sharper. Then explain why your heart rate has increased. Zyra froze. Ryan stood up. Hey, back off, buddy. She's not going anywhere. The Valkyrian's gaze shifted to Ryan. Human, you are irrelevant. Ryan smirked. Yeah. Then why are you so worried about me? Silence. The Valkyrian's expression remained neutral, but his next words were firm. Zyra, you have one standard cycle to return. If you do not comply, we will retrieve you by force. The hologram flickered out. Zyra stood still. Ryan crossed his arms. So, your people aren't big fans of me, huh? Zyra's fingers twitched slightly. They believe I am compromised. Ryan leaned closer. And, are you? Zyra did not answer. Because for the first time in her life, she did not know. The Valkyrian warning. Zyra stood in silence, staring at the empty space where the holographic message had flickered out. The air inside her ship felt thick, heavy. She had received orders before, many times. Valkyrians always followed orders. But this time, she hesitated. Her people had given her one cycle to return. If she disobeyed, they would come for her. And Valkyrians did not tolerate disobedience. Behind her, Ryan shifted uncomfortably. So, I'm guessing that was bad. Zyra didn't answer immediately. She was still trying to process the strange tightness in her chest. Her mind told her she needed to comply, return to Valkyrian space, and erase this failed experiment from her memory. But her body did not want to move. She felt something. It was unfamiliar, uncomfortable, but not entirely unpleasant. Zyra. Ryan's voice snapped her out of her thoughts. She turned to him. His blue eyes were filled with something she didn't recognize. Concern. For her. No one had ever looked at her like that before. She should not care. She should ignore it. But for some reason, she could not. Ryan stepped forward. Look, I may not know much about your people, but that guy didn't look like he was joking. What happens if you don't go back? Zyra exhaled. They will send an extraction unit. Ryan frowned. And by extraction unit, you mean? Zyra's expression darkened. A high-priority retrieval squad. If I resist, they will use force. Ryan crossed his arms. So, basically, an alien SWAT team. Zyra nodded. Yes, and they do not fail. A heavy silence settled between them. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, muttering to himself. All right. Great. So, what's the plan? Zyra hesitated again. Her plan had always been simple. Follow orders. Gather data. Return home. But now, for the first time in her life, she did not know what she wanted. Ryan leaned forward. Hey, talk to me. Do you want to go back? Zyra opened her mouth, ready to say yes. It was the logical answer. The expected answer. But the word did not come out. She looked at Ryan again. His presence was familiar now, comforting in a way she did not understand. And that terrified her, because it meant something had changed. She had changed. And if her people found out, they would not let her go. The truth about Valkyrians. Ryan paced the room, rubbing his temples. Okay, so you've got space commandos coming after you, because you spent too much time with a human. That's insane. Zyra folded her arms. Valkyrians believe that emotions are a form of contamination. Ryan stopped pacing. Contamination. Seriously. Zyra nodded. Our species evolved past emotional responses centuries ago. Feelings led to war, destruction, inefficiency. We removed them from our genetic structure. It made us stronger. Ryan frowned. Yeah, but at what cost? Zaira hesitated. At the time, it was necessary. Without emotions, our people achieved technological dominance, eliminated conflict, and became one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Ryan studied her. And yet, here you are, feeling something. Zaira's fingers twitched. She didn't want to admit it, but he was right. Something had changed inside her. She was no longer purely Valkyrian. A thought struck her, a dangerous one. If her people learned that she had begun to experience human emotions, they would never let her return. They would erase her. She clenched her jaw. I cannot go back. Ryan raised an eyebrow. What? Zaira's voice was firmer now. If they discover what has happened to me, I will be considered defective. My memory will be wiped. My body will be reset. Ryan's expression darkened. Reset? You mean they'll erase everything I have learned, everything I have felt. I will cease to be me. Ryan cursed under his breath. That's messed up. Zaira swallowed. It is our way. Ryan shook his head. No, it's not your way. It's their way. But you're different. Zaira looked at him, her heart rate increasing again. Ryan took a deep breath. You don't want to go back, do you? Silence. Then finally, Zaira said the most dangerous thing she had ever said in her life. No. The decision. Ryan exhaled. All right. Then we need a plan. Zaira narrowed her eyes. You are assuming I require your assistance. Ryan smirked. Oh, I know you do. Zaira opened her mouth to argue, but stopped. Because he was right. For the first time in her existence, she was standing against her own people. She had never done that before. She had never even considered it possible. She needed help. Ryan leaned against the console, arms crossed. So how do we stop an alien SWAT team from dragging you back? Zaira inhaled sharply. We do not fight them directly. That would be suicide. Ryan nodded. Then what? Zaira's silver eyes glowed faintly as her mind began forming a strategy. We run. Ryan blinked. Wait, run? As an escape? Yes. Like full-blown fugitives. Affirmative. Ryan stared at her for a long moment. Then he let out a short laugh. Well, I always wanted to be on the run from aliens. Guess today's my lucky day. Zaira tilted her head. You find this amusing? Ryan grinned. Nah, I just like the idea of screwing up their perfect little system. Zaira watched him carefully. There was something in his voice, in his expression, a sense of freedom that she had never known. A small, almost imperceptible smile crossed her lips. Perhaps emotions were not a weakness after all. The breaking point. The countdown had begun. Zaira moved swiftly through the control panels of her ship, her fingers tapping in rapid succession as she prepared for the escape of her life. The Valkyrian extraction unit would arrive in less than one cycle, and she knew one thing with absolute certainty. If they caught her, she would never be the same again. Behind her, Ryan Carter paced back and forth, glancing at the screens filled with alien symbols he couldn't understand. All right, let me get this straight, he said, rubbing his temples. You're planning to outrun a group of hyper-advanced alien enforcers who don't tolerate disobedience in a ship they probably have tracking access to. Zaira didn't look up. Correct. Ryan sighed. You ever considered that maybe you're a little insane? Zaira paused for a fraction of a second, then resumed her work. Not until now. Ryan chuckled, despite the tension. Welcome to humanity, then. The ship's engines hummed louder as Tyra engaged stealth protocols. If she could get just 1 light year away before her people locked onto her, they would lose her trail in the starfield. But there was a problem. Something inside her felt wrong. Her hands trembled slightly. A strange heat burned through her body, spreading from her core outward. Her head felt heavier than usual, and her thoughts weren't as precisely organized as they had always been. It was as if her own mind was resisting her. She gritted her teeth. Now was not the time for weakness. "Ryan," she said abruptly. Ryan stopped pacing. "Yeah." Zaira turned to face him, her silver eyes sharp. "If anything happens to me, you must take the ship and leave immediately." Ryan's eyebrows shot up. Whoa, hold up. What do you mean, if anything happens to you?" Zaira hesitated. She did not want to admit it. She did not want to acknowledge the possibility that something was going very, very wrong inside her. But Ryan wasn't stupid. He noticed the way she clenched her jaw, the way she kept one hand close to her side, as if something hurt. His expression darkened. "You're not okay, are you?" Zaira exhaled slowly. "No." Ryan stepped closer, now visibly worried. "What's going on? You're sweating. Are you sick?" Zaira's fingers curled. Valkyrians do not experience sickness. But something was happening to her. Ryan narrowed his eyes. "Then what is it?" Zaira hesitated again, then finally admitted the truth. "I believe I am mutating." "The mutation." Ryan's face went blank. "I'm sorry, what?" Zaira clenched her fists. "The prolonged exposure to human emotions has altered something inside me. My physiology is shifting. My energy patterns are unstable." Ryan's mouth opened, then closed. "Okay, yeah. No big deal. Just an alien having a full-blown metamorphosis because of emotions. Totally normal Tuesday." Zaira's body shuddered. For a split second, she felt a pulse of something unfamiliar coursing through her veins. And then, her vision blurred. Her knees buckled, and she staggered forward. Ryan caught her before she hit the floor. "Whoa, hey. Easy." Zaira blinked rapidly, trying to clear her vision. Her breath was ragged, her silver skin flickering between its normal color and a faint iridescent hue. Ryan stared at her, alarmed. "Okay, what the hell is happening?" Zaira forced herself to stand. "I do not know. My body is adapting. This has never happened before." Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "Okay, so best case scenario, you get superpowers. Worst case scenario, you..." He didn't finish the sentence. Neither of them wanted to say it out loud. The extraction begins. Before they could process it further, the ship's proximity alarms blared. They were here. Zaira's heart pounded. She whirled back to the control panel. A massive Valkyrian warship had dropped out of hyperspace. Ryan swore under his breath. "That is one big-ass ship." Zaira's mind worked fast. They were out of time. She slammed her hands onto the control panel, engaging the ship's engines at full power. The thrusters roared to life, and the ship shot forward, breaking into a faster-than-light acceleration. But she wasn't fast enough. A tractor beam locked onto them. The ship shuddered violently. Ryan gripped the side of the console. "Zaira, I don't think your fancy spaceship wants to go anywhere." Zaira gritted her teeth. "They are pulling us in." Ryan clenched his fists. "Not if I have anything to say about it." He dashed toward the weapons system, scanning the controls. "Tell me we have some kind of counterattack." Zaira's eyes flickered toward him. "You cannot fight them directly, Ryan. We will not win." Ryan growled. "There's gotta be something." The ship lurched violently. The tractor beam dragged them closer and closer to the massive Valkyrian vessel. And then, everything stopped. The ship's power cut out completely. Zaira's stomach twisted. They had been boarded. Confrontation. The doors to the ship hissed open. 5 Valkyrian enforcers stepped inside. They were tall, clad in shimmering dark armor, their faces cold and expressionless. One of them stepped forward, his silver eyes locked onto Zaira. "You have disobeyed, Zaira." Zaira stood her ground. "I have chosen my own path." The enforcer tilted his head slightly. "You have been contaminated. You are no longer one of us." Ryan stepped in front of Zaira. "Yeah, well, she's not one of you anymore. and you're not taking her anywhere." The enforcer's gaze flicked to Ryan, his expression unreadable. "You are irrelevant, human." Ryan grinned. "Buddy, I am the most relevant thing in this room right now." The Valkyrian enforcer ignored him. He raised a hand, activating a shimmering energy restraint field. Zyra took a step back, her heart pounding. If they took her, she would be erased. Everything she had felt, everything she had learned, gone. Her fingers twitched. And then, something inside her snapped. A surge of raw energy exploded from her body, sending the enforcers flying backward. Zyra's breath hitched, her vision flickered, and for the first time, she felt power coursing through her veins. Ryan stared at her, wide-eyed. What the hell was that? Zyra slowly raised her hands, staring at the glowing energy pulsing through them. She had changed. She was no longer just Valkyrian. She was something else, and she was not going back. The final decision. The ship was in chaos. The Valkyrian enforcers, who had once stood tall and unshaken, were now scattered across the floor, their bodies twitching from the unexpected energy surge that had blasted them backward. Sparks flickered from the ship's damaged consoles, casting eerie flashes of blue and white against the metallic walls. Zyra stood at the center of it all, breathing heavily. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the raw power surging through her body. The energy danced along her skin, flickering between the cold silver of her Valkyrian origins and a faint, glowing warmth she had never seen before. She was changing, becoming something new, and she had no idea what she had become. Behind her, Ryan was still frozen in shock, his blue eyes wide as he took in the scene. Okay, so that just happened. Zyra swallowed, trying to steady herself. She could still feel the energy inside her. It wasn't just power, it was something deeper, something alive. Ryan stepped cautiously toward her. "Zyra, what did you just do?" She didn't answer. Not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't know. The Valkyrian enforcers groaned, beginning to recover. Their leader, taller than the others, his armor glimmering like liquid silver, pushed himself up, eyes narrowing. "This is impossible." His voice was calm, but beneath it, there was something else, a sliver of fear. Zyra turned to him, her fingers still glowing faintly. "No, this is evolution." The leader clenched his jaw. "You have been contaminated beyond repair." Zyra's eyes narrowed. "I have been enlightened." Ryan grinned. "Yeah, I think you just scared the hell out of them." The enforcer ignored him. He straightened, his face unreadable. "You must come with us." "Zyra, you are unstable. You require immediate correction." Zyra's fingers curled. "You mean I require erasure?" The enforcer didn't deny it. "You are no longer Valkyrian. You have been tainted by human corruption. If you return willingly, you may yet be restored." Ryan stepped forward. "She's not going anywhere with you." The enforcer barely acknowledged him. "This is not your concern, human." Ryan clenched his fists. "Like hell it isn't." Zyra glanced at Ryan. He was standing between her and the enforcer, as if ready to take a hit for her. No hesitation, no fear. Why? Why would a human, a species so much weaker than Valkyrians, risk himself for her? The answer was simple. Because he cared. And for the first time, Zyra realized she cared too. Her mind, once ruled by logic, was now flooded with something stronger, something even her species couldn't control. Emotion, connection, humanity. And she wasn't giving it up. The fight for freedom. The enforcers recovered quickly, their movements sharp and disciplined. The leader raised his hand, and a shimmering stasis field activated, rippling through the air toward Zyra. She barely had time to react before instinct took over. Instead of dodging, she raised her own hand, and the energy within her body responded. A wave of force erupted from her fingertips, clashing with the stasis field in midair. The collision sent out a shockwave that cracked the walls of the ship. Ryan stumbled back. Holy hell, Kyra. Zyra's heart pounded. She had just countered a Valkyrian attack with her own power. The enforcers hesitated for the first time. They were afraid. Their leader recovered quickly, his face darkening. Enough. He raised his wrist, activating a command sequence. Deploy reinforcements. A soft beep echoed from his communicator. Then, boom, the entire ship shook violently. Ryan nearly fell over. That wasn't us, was it? Zyra's eyes flicked to the scanners. Another ship had just entered the battlefield. It wasn't Valkyrian. It was human. Unexpected backup. Ryan stared at the screen. Wait, I know that ship. Zyra glanced at him. Explain. Ryan grinned. That's the SS Pathfinder. My people just showed up. The communicator crackled, and a new voice entered the conversation. This is Captain Elias Carter of the UEC fleet. You have one chance to release my pilot before we start shooting. Ryan grinned wider. Told you I had friends. Zyra turned to the Valkyrian enforcer. Your move. For the first time, the enforcer hesitated. Valkyrians did not negotiate. They did not surrender. But now, they were facing something they had never encountered before. A Valkyrian who had evolved. A human fleet ready to fight. And the undeniable proof that emotions, the very thing they had eradicated, made her stronger. The enforcer studied Zyra one last time. Then finally, with a clenched jaw, lowered his hand. We will not forget this, Zyra. His voice was quiet but filled with warning. You are no longer one of us. Zyra's eyes were calm. I know. The enforcer signaled his team. The Valkyrians disappeared in a flash of light, retreating back to their warship. Moments later, their ship disengaged its tractor beam and jumped into hyperspace. It was over. Ryan let out a deep breath. Okay, that was stressful. Zyra looked at her hands again. The energy inside her had settled, but it was still there. She had crossed the point of no return. She was no longer purely Valkyrian. She was something more. Ryan nudged her shoulder. So, what now? Zyra took a slow breath. Now, I learn what it means to be human. Ryan smirked. Welcome to the madness. She turned to him. For the first time, she smiled, not as an experiment, not as a calculated social response, but because she truly felt it. And it felt good. As the ship turned toward the human fleet, Zyra knew one thing for certain. She had been searching for answers about human attraction, emotions, and connection. Now, she had all the data she needed, because she had become part of it.